like US attack on Venezuela and abduction of Mr. and Mrs. Maduro, marks a new low in international politics. Return to Stone Ages and Jungle Raj. Might is right. UN is a joke.
US control on Venezuela's oil. A win for India? Why Venezuela matters for India. A US-led overhaul of Venezuela's oil sector, following the attack, could help India recover nearly $1 billion in unpaid dues. ONGC Videsh Limited's San Cristobal oil field has large stranded reserves due to US sanctions. India was once a major buyer of Venezuelan crude before imports halted in 2020. ONGC Videsh Limited could quickly restart production using equipment from its Gujarat fields. Output at San Cristobal could rise from 5,000 to 10,000 barrels per day to up to 1 lakh barrels per day. India could regain access to Venezuelan oil, boosting energy security and bargaining power.
With President Maduro out, President Trump wants American oil companies in, saying the runway is now clear for U.S. corporations to revitalize a, quote, badly broken oil industry they once dominated. But tonight, some questioning if that plan is realistic.
The oil companies are going to go in, they're going to spend money, we're going to take back the oil.
Venezuela, a key ally of Russia and China, sits on the largest supply of oil reserves worldwide, a supply U.S. companies tapped for decades. But after Venezuela nationalized its oil industry, output plummeted. Sanctions and decades of mismanagement meant that the country now accounts for just 1% of global production. But so far, some American oil companies like ConocoPhillips and Chevron not overtly signing on to the president's plan. U.S. oil companies say they lost billions when they were forced out by Venezuela's government, leaving behind assets and lost profits. Trump says that will change.
We're in the oil business. We'll be selling oil, probably in much larger doses.
Now, right now, China is the largest buyer of Venezuelan oil. President Trump doesn't like that. Instead, he would rather see that oil sold within the United States or to other friendly countries. But bottom line, Lindsay, is that we are likely at least years away before we see a truly significant increase in Venezuelan oil production.
How US captured Maduro, his wife from their fortress. US carried out a large-scale strike in Venezuela, capturing President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, Cilia Flores. Venezuelan authorities said the strikes targeted military-linked sites near the capital, killing at least 40 people. AFP reported that at least 7 explosions rocked Caracas, with low-flying aircraft, air sirens, and power outages adding to the chaos. President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, Cilia Flores, were captured in a nighttime raid by the US Army's elite Delta Force. The operation, called Operation Absolute Resolve, targeted a heavily guarded Caracas compound and lasted less than 30 minutes. Maduro and Flores were flown out by US military aircraft, first to the USS Iwo Jima, then Guantanamo Bay, and finally to New York to face federal charges.
Tonight, breaking news, the stunning capture of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, now behind bars in the U.S., set to face charges in court in New York City, 24 hours after the president said the U.S. would run Venezuela. President Nicolas Maduro and his wife handcuffed as they arrived in New York City. Maduro showing 2 thumbs up, wishing federal agents Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
New details emerging about the extraordinary U.S. military operation to extract Maduro from his safe house inside a heavily fortified military installation. 150 U.S. aircraft taking off from 20 locations, extraction teams flying less than 100 feet above the surface. A covert CIA team on the ground tracking Maduro's every move. And President Trump's new threat to Venezuela's vice president, saying she will pay a very big price if she does not cooperate. Martha Raddatz with the latest reporting. 24 hours after President Trump claimed the U.S. would now run Venezuela, what the administration is now saying tonight. The president, who campaigned on getting America out of foreign wars, now says he will not rule out American boots on the ground in Venezuela. America's precision operation to capture Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, bringing them to the U.S. to face charges in an American court.
Remarkable new video showing the moment ousted Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife arrived in New York, facing federal narco-terrorism charges. The once defiant leader in handcuffs, surrounded by federal agents, wishing everyone Happy New Year in video shared by the administration.
Happy New Year.
Maduro seized in a bold and dangerous military operation using the army's elite Delta Force to remove him from power, with President Trump claiming the U.S. has now taken over Venezuela.
We're going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition.
Donald Trump warns Venezuela's acting president against defying U.S. U.S. President Donald Trump has issued a blunt warning to Venezuela's interim leader, Delcy Rodriguez, threatening severe consequences if she continues to defy Washington following the U.S.-led operation that resulted in the capture of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, according to The Atlantic. Nobody could have done that. Trump takes victory lap over Maduro capture. Trump hails U.S. muscle from GOP stage. U.S. President Donald Trump addressed House Republicans as lawmakers met for a party retreat. He praised Republican policies and highlighted the U.S. operation targeting Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela. He declared American military power unmatched, saying the U.S. proved once again that we have the most powerful, most lethal, most sophisticated, and most fearsome military on planet Earth. No other country could have carried out the operation. Trump said Democrats failed to acknowledge the operation's success. At some point they should say, you know, you did a great job. Thank you. Congratulations. He accused Maduro of violence and killing millions, alleging the presence of torture centers in Caracas. He claimed protests demanding Maduro's release were staged and funded, dismissing demonstrators as paid actors. Venezuela today, Greenland tomorrow. Trump's threat map expands. Who's on hit list? U.S. President Donald Trump has issued a series of blunt warnings to multiple countries over the past few hours. The remarks came a day after an audacious U.S. military operation in Venezuela that led to the capture of President Nicolas Maduro. The statements underline a more openly confrontational U.S. posture. Colombia. Trump accused the country of being run by a sick man who profits from cocaine trafficking, warning that President Gustavo Petro won't be doing it for very long. Cuba. Although Trump argued military action may be unnecessary in case of Cuba because it was already collapsing economically, Secretary of State Marco Rubio told reporters a day earlier, they are in a lot of trouble. Greenland. Reviving an old demand, Trump said the U.S. needs Greenland for national security, claiming Russian and Chinese ships now dominate the region. Colombian President Gustavo Petro received a warning from his U.S. counterpart Donald Trump to watch his ass, even as Nicolas Maduro was brought to a prison in New York almost a day after Washington launched military Operation Absolute Resolve in Venezuela.
Come get me, I'm waiting. Colombia's Petro dares Donald Trump after Maduro capture.
Trump signals possible U.S. action against Colombia. Trump had accused Colombia's leadership of fueling cocaine trafficking into the United States. Trump labeled Petro a sick man and said a U.S. operation against Colombia sounds good. The White House recently shared an old clip of Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro, soon after his capture saying, "Come get me, don't be late." Colombian President Gustavo Petro directly challenged U.S. President Donald Trump, declaring, "Come get me. I'm waiting for you here." Petro warned that U.S. bombings or arrests in Colombia would kill civilians and reignite guerrilla warfare. Petro rejected invasions and assassinations, saying he would accept only intelligence-based dialogue and face-to-face talks. White House says, Trump is discussing how to acquire Greenland, and U.S. says, military always an option. Mette Frederiksen, Danish PM stern warning to Donald Trump over Greenland takeover threats. Everything stops, including NATO, said Mette Frederiksen. Mette Frederiksen's comments came in response to Trump's renewed call for the strategic, mineral-rich Danish autonomous island to come under U.S. control. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen has warned U.S. President Donald Trump that any American takeover of Greenland would amount to the end of the NATO military alliance. If the United States chooses to attack another NATO country militarily, then everything stops. That is, including our NATO, and thus the security that has been provided since the end of the Second World War, Fredriksson told Danish broadcaster TV2. The dead of night operation by U.S. forces in Caracas to capture leader Nicolas Maduro and his wife left the world stunned, and heightened concerns in Denmark and Greenland, which is a semi-autonomous territory of the Danish kingdom, and thus part of NATO. Trump praise for PM Modi amid pressure on Delhi. U.S. President Donald Trump warned that Washington could raise tariffs on India if New Delhi does not help on the Russian oil issue, tying the threat directly to the Russia-Ukraine war. He reiterated that India's continued purchase of Russian crude was a key reason behind the steep 50% tariff imposed earlier. Trump said tariffs could be raised very quickly, underlining a hardline stance on India-Russia energy ties. Even as Trump issued the warning, he praised Prime Minister Narendra Modi, calling him a very good man. Trump claimed PM Modi had earlier assured him that India would stop buying Russian oil, describing it as a step to pressure Moscow. India later denied that any such assurance or conversation took place, clarifying its position amid ongoing India-US tensions over Russia. Venezuela analogy sparks outrage. Congress leader Prithviraj Chavan linked trade trouble between India and the US with the CIA-led capture of Nicolas Maduro. He asked whether something similar could happen in India, questioning, "Will Trump kidnap our Prime Minister?" The remark drew sharp criticism from the BJP, which accused Congress of making anti-India comparisons and termed the remark a new low for the party.
You are watching Sanglikar's Weekly.
Like, does Greenland have a price tag? Or is it the turn of Cuba or Iran now? A bloodthirsty animal can do anything. Right?
How much money are you thinking of giving people in Greenland to get them on board with a possible U.S.
I'm not talking about money for Greenland yet. I might talk about that. But right now, we are going to do something on Greenland, whether they like it or not, because if we don't do it, Russia or China will take over Greenland, and we're not going to have Russia or China as a neighbor.
Why does the U.S. want Greenland? The U.S. says that owning Greenland is critical to the security of America. By expanding military power at its Bidufik space base, the U.S. could build more modern early warning and missile defense networks. The U.S. would also control the GI-UK gap, a vital maritime corridor, giving it the possibility of unilateral monitoring of any military activity in the North Atlantic. As Arctic ice continues to melt, new shipping lanes between Asia and Europe are becoming viable. Controlling Greenland would give Washington a dominant position over these future trade arteries and possibly shift the balance of international commerce. The U.S. is targeting Greenland's massive rare earth deposits for economic gain, but also to disrupt global supply chains and attempt to exert control in this area. Greenland's large deposits of rare earth elements could be vital for the future of American high-tech and defense industries. Having control over these resources means a chance to realign global supply chains and reduce dependence on external markets.
U.S. seizes oil tankers connected to Venezuela. Sink some American boats. Russia talks tough after U.S. seizure of vessels off Venezuela coast. Russian lawmaker Alexei Zhuravlev issued an incendiary warning to the United States following the seizure of a Russian-flagged oil tanker by U.S. forces in the North Atlantic, suggesting that Washington could be confronted militarily if it continues what Moscow views as unlawful actions on the high seas.
U.S. forces boarded 2 oil tankers early Wednesday morning, including one that had been trying to evade U.S. seizure for more than 2 weeks. That tanker, formerly known as the Bella 1, had changed its registration to Russia as it fled the U.S. The tanker was actually being escorted by a Russian submarine at the time of the seizure, which raised the stakes for U.S. personnel.
It's all about the oil.
US goes crude on Venezuela, turns heat on icy Greenland. US seizes Venezuela-linked tanker. US seized a Venezuela-linked oil tanker sailing under Russian flag for evading a maritime blockade and violating US sanctions. US had been pursuing the tanker since last month, after it tried to evade a blockade around Venezuela. Earlier, Trump said Venezuela's interim authorities would transfer 30 to 50 million barrels of sanctioned oil to the US, with sale proceeds controlled by Washington.
Trump's green card for Greenland? US Secretary of State Marco Rubio said he had planned a meeting with Danish officials next week. The move came after European leaders pushed back against President Donald Trump's suggestion of a US takeover of Greenland. Leaders from 6 European countries backed Denmark, asserting that Greenland was a self-governing territory that belonged to its people. US green light on Venezuelan oil is a massive win for India.
The White House has signaled it is ready to allow India to buy Venezuelan oil under a US-controlled system, just a day after President Trump backed a sanctions bill targeting countries buying Russian energy. US offers Venezuela as an alternative. With Russian oil deliveries declining, the US move to allow India access to Venezuelan crude provides a timely alternative. Energy Secretary Christopher Wright explained that Venezuelan oil will be sold under a US-supervised system. This offer to India comes just days after President Donald Trump backed a tough bipartisan sanctions bill aimed at countries buying Russian oil. The bill, called the Sanctioning Russia Act of 2025, would allow the U.S. to impose massive trade penalties on countries that continue buying Russian energy. India, China, and Brazil are all mentioned as potential targets. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham said the bill was green-lit after he met Trump and could be taken up in Congress as early as next week. One section of the bill would allow the U.S. president to impose at least a 500% tariff on all goods and services imported from countries that knowingly buy Russian oil, gas, uranium, or petroleum products.
Like, believe it or not, New York judge hearing Maduro case is reputed to doze off in court. Trial is a bloody joke.
Sure, the arraignment of Maduro and his wife was today. Sure, he pled not guilty, but he's already laying the groundwork to raise a head of state immunity defense, to raise a jurisdictional defense. Now, Judge Hellerstein didn't want to hear it today because today's not the day. Today's the day to say, I'm guilty or not guilty. But Maduro is already laying the groundwork, and we know who his lawyers are, including private counsel, and you're going to be shocked to find out who one of his lawyers is and who the other lawyer is, and how smartly Maduro picked these lawyers. And why do private counsel come into a case like that? Who's paying for it? Will the court ever explore whether drug money is being used to pay for these lawyers?
I heard him before I saw him. I could hear the jangle of the shackles around his ankles as he was brought into the room, and he immediately wished everyone a happy new year. And there was a moment where the judge asked him to confirm his identity, to which Nicolas Maduro replied, "I am President Nicolas Maduro Morris," he said, "President of the Republic of Venezuela, here kidnapped since January the 3rd. I was captured," he said, "in my home in Caracas, Venezuela." The judge then interrupted him. He said, "There'll be a time and a place to go into this. At this point, I only want to know one thing. Are you Nicolas Maduro Morris?" To which he replied, "I am Nicolas Maduro Morris."
Like, spineless EU leaders kept mum. Like, jumping with joy, thumping his chest, Trump said US military power is the greatest. Test it against Russia or China.
Okay, thank you very much. This is big stuff. We appreciate you being here. Late last night and early today, at my direction, the United States Armed Forces conducted an extraordinary military operation in the capital, of Venezuela. Overwhelming American military power, air, land, and sea, was used to launch a spectacular assault. And it was an assault like people have not seen since World War II. It was a force against a heavily fortified military fortress in the heart of Caracas to bring outlaw dictator Nicolas Maduro to justice. This was one of the most stunning, effective, and powerful displays of American military might and competence in American history. And if you think about it, we've done some other good ones, like the attack on Soleimani, the attack on al-Baghdadi, and the obliteration and decimation of the Iran nuclear sites just recently in an operation known as Midnight Hammer. All perfectly executed and done. No nation in the world could achieve what America achieved yesterday, or frankly in just a short period of time. All Venezuelan military capacities were rendered powerless as the men and women of our military, working with U.S. law enforcement, successfully captured Maduro in the dead of night. It was dark. The lights of Caracas were largely turned off due to a certain expertise that we have.
Like, Iran is on the boil. Iran accuses US and Israel of fomenting trouble. Quite possible. Trump angry with India.
Modi turns down US invite.
Modi says he politely declined Trump's invitation to the US so that he could visit Odisha. I was in Canada for the G7 summit when US President Donald Trump called and invited me to Washington for a discussion and lunch, PM Narendra Modi said at a public event in Odisha's Bhubaneswar.
साथियों, अभी 2 दिन पहले मैं कनाडा में G7 समिट के लिए वहां था और अमेरिका के राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप ने मुझे फोन किया। उन्होंने कहा कि अब कनाडा तो आए ही हैं तो वॉशिंगटन होकर के जाइए, साथ में खाना खाएंगे, बातें करेंगे। उन्होंने बड़े आग्रह से निमंत्रण दिया। मैंने अमेरिका के राष्ट्रपति को कहा कि आपका निमंत्रण के लिए धन्यवाद, मुझे तो महाप्रभु की धरती पर जाना बहुत जरूरी है। और इसलिए मैंने उनके निमंत्रण को नम्रतापूर्वक मना किया और आपका प्यार, महाप्रभु की भक्ति मुझे इस धरती पर खींच करके ले आई है।
Trump says he ended Indo-Pak conflict 30 times. India does not respond.
A few countries nominated Trump for Nobel Peace Prize. 1. Pakistan regime. 2. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. 3. Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Manet. 4. Armenia and Azerbaijan. 5. Rwandan Foreign Minister Olivier Nduhungirehe. 6. Gabonese President Brice Oligui. 7. Ngema President of Equatorial Guinea. India did not respond.
Trump reveals private talk with PM Modi. PM Modi pleaded for Apache. Sir, may I see you please? US President Donald Trump says Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi personally raised concerns with him about long-delayed Apache helicopter deliveries, reportedly asking, Sir, may I see you, please?
The Apache helicopter. I mean, I had India coming to me, sir, I've been waiting 5 years. We're changing it. We're changing it. India ordered 68 Apaches, and Prime Minister Modi came to see me. Sir, may I see you, please? Yes, I have a very good relationship with him. He's not that happy with me because, you know, they're paying a lot of tariffs now because they're not doing the oil, but they are. They've now reduced it very substantially, as you know, from Russia. We have the best weapons in the world, but it takes too long to get them, including allies, when allies want to buy them. They have to wait 4 years for a plane, 5 years for a helicopter. We're not letting that happen anymore. We're telling our defense contractors, you're going to start building faster. You know, guy makes... I have a big problem.
A sane advice from Thera.
Tharua's answer to Trump's Keep Me Happy dig on PM Modi. Every country has its national interest, Tharua said. All of these things are part of a policy of maximizing our options. In life, in politics, in diplomacy, very often, the more options you have, the more you are protected from the vagaries of any one country doing anything to you. Let's leave it there for now, he added.
Tharua was responding to Trump's remark where the latter, while interacting with reporters aboard Air Force One, said it was important for India to keep him happy on the issue of Russian oil imports. PM Modi's a very good man. He's a good guy. He knew I was not happy. It was important to make me happy. They do trade, and we can raise tariffs on them very quickly, Trump said.
Thera said that India should continue to focus on good relations with Russia, decent relations with China, good relations with America, opening up to Europe, trying to develop new avenues in Africa, trying to improve the situation with Australia and New Zealand. We have the Japanese, South Korean and Southeast Asian countries. India has rejected Trump's assertion that Prime Minister Modi had assured him that New Delhi would stop purchasing Russian oil, clarifying that no such assurance or conversation had taken place.
Trump has clearly said that Modi had called him and pleaded to meet him, and also we are on a very compromising position with the US so far.
Look, every country has its national interests uppermost in mind. For me, those national interests mean we don't want to create major enemies or major problems for ourselves anywhere, and we want to preserve channels of communication with everyone as far as possible. In my writings, I have advocated in support of this multi-aligned approach, where we have good relations with Russia, decent relations with China, good relations with America, opening up to Europe, trying to develop new avenues in Africa, trying to improve situation with Australia and New Zealand, etc., etc. We have the Japanese, Southeast Asian, South Korean and Southeast Asian countries. All of these things are part of a policy of maximizing our options. In life, in politics, in diplomacy, very often the more options you have, the more you are protected from the vagaries and vicissitudes of any one country doing anything to you. Let's leave it there for now.
Trump withdraws US from 66 organizations.
Trump directs US withdrawal from 66 organizations, including UN Climate Convention. The US, world's largest historical polluter, will now withdraw completely from the Global Climate Change Mitigation Agreement.
President Trump announced the United States will withdraw from 66 international organizations and treaties. This includes major bodies like the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change and the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. The decision follows a review by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, citing these groups as contrary to U.S. interests. Critics warn the move could hurt American companies and communities by sidelining the country in the booming clean energy sector. Supporters argue it will stop U.S. funding for what they call ineffective global agendas. The withdrawal marks a historic shift, leaving the U.S. as the only nation outside key climate treaties.
Breaking news. Next news item, oh, it's breaking fast.
Like, Trump threatening to impose 500% tariff on India made economist J.D. Sachs remark that Trump is not stable. Any doubt?
Professor, this 500% development is also accompanied by United States of America withdrawing from 66 international bodies, both UN and non-UN. One thing which caught my eye, sir, was he has also exited, in fact two, Intergovernmental Climate Panel, and the second, the Solar Alliance led by France and India, to which India has been very much committed for mitigating the climate change effects. This American retreat from global affairs is getting married to Trump's imperial ambitions, and this makes the world a very dangerous place, Professor.
Yeah, absolutely. I apologize for getting cut off earlier. The point I was going to make with respect both to the 500% tariff and to your general question here is, in a way, the 500% is just Trump shaking his fist. The wider and very serious point here is, not only do you have an unpredictable, a chaotic Trump, beyond Trump, you have advisors who no longer believe in alliances. I mean, they don't believe in an alliance with Europe, let alone with India. They no longer believe in international organizations. Therefore, they're withdrawing from them. They no longer believe in regional organizations. It will be interesting, for example, to see if they still remain committed to the Quad with India. This group around Trump only believes in personal power for themselves. It is a return almost to the 19th century colonialism of men who think they can dominate the rule or they can carve it up. What happens here is that India becomes expendable in this. You know, you've had your ups and downs with various U.S. administrations. It has not been smooth. What you have to realize here is you cannot assume there is any type of goodwill from these men in terms of a cooperative relationship. They will see you in terms of a transaction. Can they get money out of you? Can they get influence out of you? And that means that personal relationship that you just heard about, which Prime Minister Modi had held up with Donald Trump, and it was very prominent in the first term, that means very little now, because the United States does not see other countries or other leaders as equals. At least the Trump people don't. They see you only as people who should bow down to them. You may not get a 500% tariff, it may stay only at 50%, but you still will be held economically and politically hostage by whatever their next whim is.
Mayor Zoran Kwame Mamdani on the U.S. military capture of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife.
I was briefed this morning on the U.S. military capture of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, as well as their planned imprisonment in federal custody here in New York City. Unilaterally attacking a sovereign nation is an act of war and a violation of federal and international law. This blatant pursuit of regime change doesn't just affect those abroad, it directly impacts New Yorkers, including tens of thousands of Venezuelans who call this city home. My focus is their safety and the safety of every New Yorker, and my administration will continue to monitor the situation and issue relevant guidance.
NYC Mayor Mamdani in an interview. Reporter: so will you do anything on Maduro? Mamdani: this is a federal action on a federal timeline. I owe it to New York to be honest on my personal thoughts. NYC Mayor Mamdani is learning very quickly that he doesn't have too much power.
Happy New Year.
I got two quick questions. So the first one is about Maduro. You said you called the invasion and the arrest. If I could just pull up real quick. You said it was a violation of federal and international law. Do you plan to use any of the city's resources to interfere with the prosecution or anything like that?
This is a federal action on a federal timeline, and I owe it to New Yorkers to deliver for them across the 5 boroughs and also to be honest and straightforward about my own thoughts on this.
Dear Zoran, you seem to have forgotten, but you aren't a world leader or Secretary of State. You're a city mayor. Nobody is briefing you on international military policy. Your job is local parks and garbage collection. Get a grip. Get your ego in check. Hope this helps.
Zoran Mamdani's handwritten message to Umar Khalid. It was a small piece of paper, handwritten, modest in length, almost fragile in its appearance. And yet, the note New York City Mayor Zoran Mamdani wrote to Umar Khalid, an under-trial prisoner in India since 2020, carried a weight far heavier than its few lines. Dear Umar, it began, gently, without slogans or declarations. I think of your words on bitterness often, and the importance of not letting it consume oneself. It ended simply, we are all thinking of you. Was it a political document, or a poignant human gesture?
From New York City Hall to a prison cell in Delhi, a handwritten note has traveled in 11,700 kilometers, becoming the latest international reference point in the case of jailed activist Umar Khalid. Newly sworn-in New York City Mayor Zoran Mamdani has written a personal note to jailed activist Umar Khalid, sending it through Khalid's parents during their recent visit to the United States. Mamdani, New York's first Asian American and Muslim mayor, handed over the note when he met Khalid's parents, Sahiba Khanum and Sayed Qasim, in December. The note reads, quote, Dear Umar, I think of your words on bitterness often and the importance of not letting it consume one's self. It was a pleasure to meet your parents. We are all thinking of you. A photograph of the handwritten message was shared on social media by Khalid's partner, Banojot Sinha Lahiri, on the day Mamdani was sworn in as mayor.
Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro was captured by U.S. forces in a large-scale strike on January 3, 2026. The capture sparked international reactions, condemnation from some nations, and confusion over who is in charge. Any handwritten note on this?
फुटनोट जो भी लिख दे मैं साइन करूं तू बोल थोड़ा ऑफ बीट मैं कहता इसे ही शाइन करूं हन्नोट या फुटनोट मैं मर गए पे सपने भरूं रूल बुक तेरे हाथ में हो पर पेज पे मैं ही धरूं
Mamdani. Remember, the Supreme Court denied bail to activists Umar Khalid and Shahjil Imam in the 2020 Delhi riots conspiracy case, while granting bail to 5 co-accused. Law 1. Any person acting against the country shouldn't be spared. The matter concerns India's security. It's none of your business to comment.
You are watching Sanglikar's Weekly. Like, in a dangerous move, Nepal, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka and Pakistan have supported One China doctrine. By this doctrine, we too can annex these 4.
After Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Nepal has now backed One China policy. Nepal has issued a statement reaffirming One China stance.
Barbarity in Bangladesh. Hindu widow raped, tied to a tree and tortured. Widow brutalized after rejecting advances. A 40-year-old Hindu widow in Bangladesh's Jhaneda district was allegedly raped, tortured, tied to a tree, and had her hair cut by 2 local men. Police said one of the accused had been harassing the woman for over 2 years after she rejected his repeated indecent advances. The assault reportedly took place after which the woman lost consciousness due to the torture. Local residents rescued the injured woman and admitted her to Jhaneda Seda Hospital, where medical examination later confirmed torture. The victim subsequently filed a complaint at the Kalaganj police station, leading to the arrest of both accused men. Police said an investigation is underway and assured strict legal action against those responsible. Blood on the streets. 6 Hindus killed in 18 days as Bangladesh sees fresh violence. 2 deaths in a single day. Sharat Chakraborty, a 40-year-old Hindu grocery shop owner, was attacked with sharp weapons at Charsandu Bazaar in Narsingdi and died while being taken to the hospital. On the same day, Hindu journalist Rana Pratap Bairagi was shot multiple times. The back-to-back murders have pushed the death toll to 6 Hindus killed in just 18 days. Recent weeks in Bangladesh have seen lynchings and assaults of Hindus, including Dipu Chandra Das, Kokan Das and Bajendra Biswas. Sexual violence has added to the fear, with a Hindu widow in Jhaneda allegedly tortured, raped and tied to a tree before being rescued. India has expressed concern over unremitting hostility towards minorities.
Like Storm Goreti has wreaked havoc in UK. Motorways are closed because of snow, and flights are cancelled. Like UAE is reportedly discouraging its students from enrolling in UK universities out of fear of Islamic radicalization. True?
United Arab Emirates has reportedly begun restricting state-funded study opportunities for its students at British universities, citing concerns over radicalization on UK campuses, according to a report by The Times.
Like 97-year-old cricket legend Neil Harvey, who watched Aussies eclipse England 4-1, lamented lack of technique in cricket. He is 100% right. T20 has reduced cricket to baseball. Zero technique. Agree?
Neil Harvey speaks. I've been quite underwhelmed by England. Their batting mindset feels overly aggressive. No one appears willing to settle in and construct a proper innings the way players like Cowdrey or Boycott once did. That approach might succeed against weaker opposition, but facing a top-quality side like Australia is a completely different challenge.
Like, Brooklyn Beckham has served a desist notice on his parents David and Victoria Beckham. David and Victoria can talk to their son only through his advocates. The feud has hit a breaking point, with Brooklyn also ordering them to stop tagging him on social media. The family remains heartbroken as the rift widens.
Sanglikars Weekly.
Lazy Bee. The 10th of January, 2026.